I was blown away when you sent me your files for the new album because there were like 43 tracks of it. I'm like, oh.
It's a lot of music. Well, you know, it's funny. So we recorded every show, and there's now been, I think, 17 or 18 shows.
Right.
So you figure if you're doing 15 or 20 songs a show over that many, you know, there were hundreds and hundreds of, so every week, I would just send the files to the engineer I work with. Say, you know, do rough mixes and send them to me. So when we started to work on this and I had to approve the mixes and choose the performances and songs and so forth, at that point, there were, you know, I don't know, maybe 400 or 500 tracks.
Right.
Now, there was a lot of overlap, but even when you have 5 versions of the same song, you've got to listen to them and see like which ones. So I then put it off for a little while.
Right. Fair enough.
It was overwhelming. I'm like, oh, I know, the last one will be the best one. It's, you know, not always the case. But anyway, so then I got it down to about 5 hours. And then eventually, you know, push came to shove and I had to make some choices. And there were, believe it or not, even with 43 songs, the Dylan disc was easy. That was done almost right away because that was basically taken from 2 shows around his birthday.
Yep.
So that was easy. The other disc, it was funny, you know, there are a lot of songs that, like I did a version of the song Elvis Costello and Paul McCartney wrote called That Day Is Done, which I really loved. But, you know, it was maybe 4.5 minutes or something. And it's like a lot of these songs, you know, like the Creedence song or whatever, without the solos and all the new band, they run out to less than 3 minutes. So you can fit in kind of a lot of songs in a short period of time. Anyway, I loved that. Maybe we'll put them up as there'll be a volume 2 for free downloads. Of
course there will be.
But because there are, you know, there is probably another 20 or 25 songs that are pretty great. You know, it's a lot. I mean, I pity anyone who would listen to it all at once. It's more for, you know, you make yourself a playlist or you pick your favorites and you dip in here and there. Because
I admit I did the same thing. First I was like, oh, look, there's Tangled Up in Blue. Oh, look, there's Mr. Tambourine Man. I got to hear that.
Yeah,
and
I think even my mom would do that. You know, I think that's how you have to approach it. And I think that's the best thing about putting out a live album in the streaming world is it doesn't have to be like, I don't know, Live at Leeds or Frampton Comes Alive or this monumental statement. It can just be a collection of songs, and people will, it'll be interesting to me to see what songs kind of rise to the top and what songs, you know, people really like more than
Actually, I think the first one I played was your Warren Zevon cover. Was it Reconsider Me?
Yeah.
I love that album. Oh.
Yeah, it's a great, it's Sentimental Hygiene, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't listened to the whole record in quite a long time, but it's a great record. That was a great moment in his career. It's an amazing song. I mean, you know, and the funny thing was, I only did that twice in the shows. The first time I did it, right before I went on, I'd gotten a message, do a Warren Zevon song. And, you know, because I would take requests.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh, well, I know Reconsider Me. But what I hadn't remembered was I probably haven't played that song since the 90s. You know, I mean, it's an old song now. And so I kind of fumbled my way through it. It was okay.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know, I think I want to include this if we're going to do a live, you know, disc. Because originally I had just thought, you know, I'm gonna record these and put a couple songs up on social media for, you know, whatever. But then we started raising a lot of money, and I thought, oh, well, you know, we can sell some merchandise and raise more money, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then after I'd done it the one time, I thought, oh, I could do that better. Now, I actually think the first version that I kind of fumbled through is the version that's on the disc.
Oh, really?
Because there was something charming about the immediacy. Yeah. It's not, you know, a perfect version, but it kind of has that seat of the pants thing.
Right.
For me as a performer.
And Warren would like it.
Well, I don't know about that. He didn't like anything. I mean, I think he was kind of about Bob doing his songs, but I don't know about.
Yeah.
But even then, I think he took issue with Dylan. So, you know, Warren was a mercurial type.
And for those who don't know what the heck we're talking about,
yes,
it's Lockdown Live. You did a series of shows, and I assume it's just you playing into a camera somewhere and hoping for the best, which I had a conversation with a Swedish rock band last night, and they were planning on doing a live to nobody kind of thing out into the atmosphere and see what happened. I gotta figure it's different and a little more satisfying for someone like you to do your thing rather than a full rock band rocking out to an empty room somewhere.
You know, I'll tell you this, it's actually much harder than I realized. The first show, I just thought, you know, you throw up the cameras and you just play.
Right.
And I know how to do this, right?
Right.
And I've done television and radio and all those things, and I thought it'll just be like that. Well, it's not. Because particularly then, the first show was the first week of April. It was literally 100% on my own. You know, there's no sound man. I'm used to having like a
sure, yeah, you got a crew.
Things. It turned out to be a brat, but and so it was 100% me. And there were glitches and audio glitches. And then the other thing is you've got people commenting. So, I mean, I've used this in the shows. Paul McCartney has this great line where, you know, he'll be singing a song he has sung 1,000 times, but there'll be people in the audience go, Paul, can we come on stage and will you marry us?
Right.
And he'll lose the place in Penny Lane or whatever it is, you know? And it was sort of that, the first couple of weeks where I had to train myself. You know, you want to you want to know what people are saying, but you also need to like be in the moment as a performer. Yeah, it's not like being in front of a crowd who are with you. They're commenting at you. You know, it's interactive. You know, so yeah, it's like being heckled almost. You know, so
I like that.
So then, you know, after a couple of weeks, I kind of got the swing of that, and then of course I wanted to upgrade the audio appearance, and I wanted to upgrade the audio and the video, and you know everything. You know, for a while I was using a really expensive mic, and many people pointed out to me that for the recordings that was great. Yeah. But sending the signal from a $10,000 Neumann mic or whatever they cost into your, you know, iPad or your iPhone or whatever, that's not going to work. I got a Sennheiser that's made for streaming and hits a particular bandwidth. And while the recordings didn't sound all that great, I didn't think, I still use the Neumann as a room mic. The audio upgraded online considerably. So, but the short answer to your question is I do them every Thursday at 4:00 New York time on Facebook and Instagram.
Very good. So of course, Dylan plays a big part in the release and in your career in general. So I'm interested in how you went about choosing what Dylan songs to. I mean, let's face it, you could go all day.
Yeah, a couple. It's funny. You know, originally before everything went crazy, my band and I have a monthly residency at a club here in New York City. I've been playing, I think, every month for 7 years. And so that started off 7 years ago with the Dylan birthday show. And so every year we do a Dylan birthday show, and a few others, Bowie and Tom Petty are the other two, Lennon as well. And, you know, we've done that show many times. And so you want to make it a little bit different. We tried different themes. We've done obscure Dylan. We've done 60s Dylan. We've done, you know, whatever. So this year we were going to do 2 sets. We were going to do Highway 61 complete. And we were going to do Blood on the Tracks complete. So I thought, in my naivete, I will do Blood on the Tracks beginning to end, and people will love it, and that'll be great. And so, you know, I have an association with that record because I did the liner notes for the box set last year. And, you know, people in Dylan, you know, the diehard Dylan fans know me for that. And I appeared with Roger McGuinn last year.
I believe I have it right here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I'll sign that for you. Here.
Thank you.
So then one afternoon, I sat down and played it on my acoustic guitar because I thought, I better run through these. There's a lot of words. And first of all, there's a lot of words. Second of all, not all those songs lend themselves to, you know, maybe a performance like that. I mean, I didn't feel like your casual Dylan fan was going to sit through Lily Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts. You know, I just didn't think that was going to happen. The other thing was, you know, I'm okay and all, but in my mind, you sort of have to be Bob Dylan to pull off some of those songs. It's sort of like covering Hendrix. You know, people don't cover Hendrix for a reason, because he's sort of so otherworldly. And some of the songs on Blood on the Tracks really belong to Dylan. So I thought long and hard of it, and then I thought, you know, I'm just going to do a grab bag. I'll do a chunk of songs from Blood on the Tracks, and then I'll say, what do people want to hear? And I got some crazy requests, but most of the requests were sort of in the ballpark of what people want to hear. And that was, you know, everything from, like you said, Mr. Tambourine Man, or, you know, Tonight I'll Be Staying Here With You, which I do very frequently, so people who've seen me live suggested that. My Back Pages, which I do. But, you know, some were just songs that I used to play as a kid that I wanted to play, like Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll.
Yeah.
Every Grain of Sand, which is one of my favorite Bob songs. And some were requests. People wanted to hear I Shall Be Released. They wanted to hear Forever Young. They wanted to hear, you know, Like a Rolling Stone, which isn't a song I've ever played by myself acoustic. Yeah. But you know what? It's a great song. It sounds great. It's amazing. There you go. You know, I thought it wouldn't work without a band, because it is such a, you know, that record is a record. It's not just a song. But, you know, and I didn't even practice it, because I played that song 1,000 times. And so, you know, it came and it went, and the performance you hear on the disc is literally just that. There's some mistakes here and there, but, you know, it feels like a guy playing the song. And I think the thing. That's the thing that's most important about Dylan, you know, that I've learned from covering him as a journalist over the last couple of years and writing about him in the liner notes last year, was that, you know, every time he steps up to the microphone, it's that moment. Yeah. It's 100% that moment. Whatever your arguments are about his, you know, work over the years, or his voice and how it's changed or whatever, he's there. Right. Yeah. So as a performer, if you can capture even an ounce of that, you're doing okay. And I think that was the idea of, you know, at one point my engineer said to me, you know, I didn't worry about mic placement and all that other stuff. I just recorded them. Yeah. And he's like, they're all kind of different, and some sound like this, and some sound. He sent me some samples, and I said, well, do your best to get them to. And he said, why don't you just go in one afternoon and just recut them all?
Right.
But, you know,
that's cheating.
First of all, it's cheating. And second of all, as a guy who's spent a lot of time in the studio, I wouldn't just do them once. You do them until you got them exactly right. And then they would feel a little clinical, a little bit like going to the dentist's office, because they are cover songs. You know, a lot of these songs are cover songs. Yeah. And so when you start doing cover songs over and over and over, you start getting closer and closer to the original and less of a performance. That's the long and the short.
I'm trying to remember. Did you do You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go from Blood on the Tracks?
No, I did not. I did not. I did Tangled Up in Blue. Right. Well, you can request it next week.
I do. It's got my favorite couplet from Dylan. He rhymes Ashtabula with Honolulu.
Right. Yeah.
I grew up near Ashtabula, so.
Really? Interesting.
Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah. No, I know. I know the whole story about how it ended up in the song, but
I'd love to hear it sometime.
Off the record, but it's
absolutely.
If you do a little digging, you can figure it out.
I'm sure.
But no, I did Tangled Up in Blue. I did If You See Her Say Hello, and I did Idiot Wind. Can't argue with those. And you know, that right there is 20 minutes. Yeah. Right. So to get people to sit through yet another 5 or 10 more minutes to do 1 or 2 more songs, I thought was pushing the envelope. Plus, I got to tell you, when I finished Idiot Wind, I was done. I
How relevant is that
right
song though now? You know, it's like,
now.
man.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. You know, people. You know, when I started to get into writing about him, and you talk to sort of more casual fans, and also, you know, we did this show. This is how it actually started about 7 years ago. We did a show called Dylan Obscura,
Yeah.
and I was doing songs that were a little offbeat. And you know, what I found was in learning them that there's always a story there. It may be from Bob Dylan's point of view. It's like, you know, Bill Flanagan interviewed him a couple of years ago, and they were in his hotel room and the window was by them. And he said, you know, if you look out at those, Flanagan said, you know, if you look out at those railroad tracks, can you just write a song about railroad tracks? And Bob says, well, what about the three-legged dog down there? Now, that'd be an interesting story. I mean, he sees the world from, you know, that left turn, and that's what makes those songs. The story's still there about the railroad tracks, but it's really like from the dog's point of view or something. You know, it's like this whole other thing. So I think, you know, once you get into the songs and you're starting to perform them, it's not just about learning the words. It's like, okay, I want to try and figure out what the story is here. What's he kind of getting at here? And then it all kind of comes from that. So that was the lesson, I think, in Idiot Wind.
Right.
Like you said, you know, there's a relevance here.
Oh,
so
definitely.
if you can kind of inhabit that relevance, you're ahead of the game and ahead of most performers who do that song.
And speaking of relevance, we'll get back to your music, but we'll talk a little bit more. What did you think of this when it came out?
Well, I adore it. I wrote 2 columns about it. It was so amazing.
Oh, great.
I did a piece for NBC about Murder Most Foul, which was, you know, just a remarkable song and a surprise.
Yep.
And then I did a long piece for the Daily Beast about the album. And look, you know, I think he sounds great. I think he learned a lot of, you know, if Bob Dylan can learn lessons, I think he learned a lot of lessons from the Sinatra records he did, because his phrasing and kind of his approach to the microphone and working with a live band, because most of those, my understanding is, were cut very live. And also, you know, his lyric writing is just off the charts. For somebody who's 79, to be able to write, you know, a song like Key West and have it, you know, sort of stand against the epic songs he already has under his belt.
That's right.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
so, you know, I think I added it as a little bit hyperbolically, but I said, you know, 5 stars aren't enough. And I think that's true, because for somebody who could kind of phone it in or just give us something, you know, really good. Yeah. He dug down. He gave us something that we will, you know, most records that come out, and I always say to people, oh, I love that record. I'm like, are you really going to be listening to that in 6 months? And now it's 6 days, you know, I mean, it's, I listened to Rough and Rowdy Ways on Friday, and it was just as surprising and enigmatic and special as it was a month ago when it came out.
Yeah. And you feel like he's talking, it's like his brain directly into yours, you know? And it's like, you don't want that with everybody, but you do want that with Bob. It's like,
well, I don't think that's for everybody, but I think that's the beauty of these songs. I think, you know, for people like us who think it's great, I think we can take a little something extra from it. Right. Whereas, you know, somebody who just wants to put on a Dylan record, it's a good choice because there's a lot there. You will find something in those 9 or 10 songs that will move you. Yeah.
Now back to you, because I'm guessing that a lot of people. Have you ever been to New Zealand? Have you played down here at all, or done anything?
I have not. I had the chance. I so regret this. When I was 18, I was in a punk band called the Mindless Thinkers, and we'd gotten our name from Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols, and I'm still friends with him to this day, and I love that name. I thank him every time I see him. But anyway. And so we were at a point where our drummer wanted to go to military school, and everybody was we were 18. Everybody was kind of going their separate ways. And we'd had a really great run for sort of, 18 months, 2 years. And a promoter approached us about playing Japan and Australia and New Zealand. And for whatever reason, I mean, we were going to college and it was going to take, we were going to have to defer some time and, whatever. And so it just didn't happen. Part of it, I'm sure part of it was my parents. I don't really remember, but I'm sure that was part of it. And we didn't. And I've always regretted that because, as a musician, the great thing about this is you get to travel and it's hard and it is work and you don't really get to see very much, but it's all expenses paid.
Exactly.
So you get to see these play. I've seen a lot of the world and never dipped into my pocket for anything because that's part of the deal. You get to sort of, and it does feed into your art too. So unfortunately, the answer is no. But if you want to bring me down, get your promoter friends. You can probably have live music soon. Is that correct?
Yes, we do indeed. We're back in business. We can't get anybody from overseas to come in because they have to go into quarantine for like 2 weeks. But we got a lot of good musicians here, so.
I know you do. I know you do. But I will volunteer to quarantine for 2 weeks while I'm there, and then play some shows because
that would be fantastic.
And I love your piano. I mean, you're the model for the rest of the world, and I think that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah, crazy. Now, speaking of your song, so there are a few of your songs, of your own songs on this collection as well. So do you want to talk about one or two of them for us?
Sure. They run the gamut from, so I have done, let's see, I was in a band, well, I mentioned the Mindless Thinkers. I was in a band in the 90s and 2000s called The Badge,
right? Who
had 3 or 4 records and it's funny, I see the streaming numbers on Spotify and I do have a following in New Zealand. I don't know why. And so The Badge are popular there. They're very popular still in like Germany and the UK and Japan to a certain degree. So I always throw in a couple of Badge songs. One of them is called My Dolly, which I wrote with Simon Townsend back in the 90s. I did some demos that Pete Townsend produced and I used Pete's touring band and Simon helped out with the recordings and we co-wrote that, and that was on the Badges. That was on the EP that Pete produced, but then I redid it with the Badge. And then a song called Comes a Broken Heart, also from the Badge era. And then there's a clutch of songs from my first solo record, Birds of Paradox, Baby Forgive Me, Lucky Day Sunset, and let's see, San Francisco Days. Which was interesting. I hadn't played San Francisco Days, I don't think, ever live, although the band had mentioned it a few times, until I did a show in California right before the pandemic with the guys from the Echo and the Canyon band. So it's sort of Jacob Dylan's kind of side project band.
Okay.
And it fell into the set because we were playing LA and San Francisco and blah, 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 it kind of felt like a good song to play, and I fell in love with it. It was like, oh, this is, you disassociate from the act of writing it, and it just becomes another song in your repertoire at a certain point.
Right.
So that one was pretty cool. I did a couple of songs for my second record, Imposters and Attractions, which is a sort of Elvis Costello tribute. There are songs
I was wondering if that was the case.
Yeah. It's songs that I wrote that never had a home anywhere because they sounded a little too on the nose.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of songs from that. And then my latest record, Secret Poetry, which has sort of Earl Slick and a bunch of the Bowie people on it. There's a song called Letter from Paris from that. And then I actually did a couple of songs that, we're making a new record now because there's nothing else to do, and we're doing it at a sort of distance. And so I played a couple of those, but they didn't make it to the release. My manager was like, you can't give away a song that you haven't recorded yet. Don't, wait.
Yeah.
And then it's a bonus track. So, they'll be like the B-side or something. But
cool.
So I've done quite a few of my originals.
So you're still doing the Lockdown Live sessions? Was it every Thursday?
Every Thursday at 4 p.m. My time, which is sort of
Friday.
People could wake up and turn it on, 8 a.m.
Friday morning. Yeah, that's all right. That's a good way to start.
Oh, right.
I mean, I tell you, I woke up really early this morning, and somebody on my Facebook feed posted Dolly Parton, Emmylou Harris, and Linda Ronstadt performing After the Gold Rush on David Letterman. It was the most beautiful. It was 1999, and I just played it. I was weeping uncontrollably.
You're done for the day.
It's like,
I'm taking the day off now.
Exactly. It was beautiful.
I'll have to look that up. That's very interesting. Yeah.
It's really nice. Anyway,
Yeah.
so it sounds like there's going to be more of these things then. So I mean, do you see, is there a feeling in the States that this is going to be over at some point, or is it just going to drag on?
No, I mean, well, okay. So the short answer is that I'm continuing them as long as people watch them. And,
Sure.
The first couple shows had, sort of 400 or 500 people. And then the last couple of weeks, it's been up around 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. So
Nice.
Somebody's watching.
Yeah.
That's not huge. If you're, I don't know, Jacob Dylan or whatever, that's not a lot of people. But for me, that's a good number. Yeah. And I have noticed, my streaming numbers are up and sales on the website are up and pre-orders are up and all that, which is very flattering. And every month, I get to sort of the middle of June and then the middle of July and now the middle of August. And I say to people, should I continue? And, people, they feel like they know you now, especially when you're in the living room every week. They want me to continue. And as long as people continue to watch, I'll continue to do it. So I'm going to do them at least until the end of August, and then sort of as we get closer, reassess. But I don't see why I wouldn't do them in September. The other thing is we had, I'm part of this sort of Friday afternoon industry Zoom meeting. It's just people jawboning about the state of things.
Yeah.
There's no one who thinks we're going back to normal here anytime soon for any number of reasons, not the least of which is the legal liabilities. But, I was supposed to do a tour with Earl Slick this fall around the 40th anniversary of Double Fantasy. And, that was a pretty big tour and Live Nation was involved and all this other.
Right.
And that's now postponed till next May. And the band were all emailing about it, and they've given us tentative new dates in May next year, and then we may be opening for Heart out in outdoor shows next spring. And the reality is, if a venue holds 1,500 people and they can only have 500 there, well, the promoter's going to get paid, but I don't think as a musician we're going to get what we were originally, guaranteed. Right, and so then the question becomes: do you want to go out on the road and put the audience at risk, but also not make a lot of money for a lot of stress and strain, and get on a tour bus?
Yeah.
And I think the real thing that I always ask myself is, I know they're claiming they've retrofitted the airflow on them, and there's nothing that makes me feel safe about getting on a tour bus and riding for 3 or 5 or 8 hours. I mean, that just doesn't feel remotely safe. Like and then you show up, at the next venue, and it's not just the audience who could get you, but it's you who get the audience, because people want to say hello, they want to meet you, they want to shake your hand, they want to, and without that interaction, what kind of experience really is it? It's sort of, I think the great thing about being not an A-list artist is you get to meet people and you get to travel around, you get to go to the coffee shop and hang out and, sign some stuff and, whatever. So, there's not a lot of upside right now in the States. I'm hopeful, as most musician friends I know are, that we will have a new government and new administration that takes it more seriously, that implements things like your government did from the top, from the very top down, where there are very clear guidelines, whether you agree with them or not. Here's what we're doing.
Right. See, that shows how important leadership is on any level. You just need somebody saying, this is what
Yeah.
we're going to do. Come along.
And not to make it a political conversation, because I don't think that's really political. I mean,
Yep.
I think that is common sense. It is science. It is human nature. People want to get to the end of this. And so, you know, I know people are impatient. They want to get to it quicker, but I think people are starting to understand that we're in for a long haul, especially here.
Yeah.
Because we haven't taken it all that seriously. I mean,
Yep.
New York is in pretty good shape.
Yep.
I can get out and about, and there was a time when I could not.
Yep.
You know, there are other ancillary problems. 500,000 people have just left the city. Many, especially small businesses, are never coming back.
Right.
So it is a little bit of a ghost town, and after dark, it's a little sketchy. You know, there's
Yeah, I can
a
imagine.
lot of homeless people, and it's a real problem. But you know, we can get out. I know friends of mine who are in other parts of the country that are spiking. They're going through what we went through in March and April and May, which I have to say was pretty terrifying and pretty grim.
I can imagine. Well, hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and
I'm coming to New Zealand. I'm
come
going
on
to
back
relocate.
down. The water's fine. It's great here. I'm glad I moved here, but and I'm glad I talked to you, and I'm going to listen to as much Dylan and your stuff as I can. Why not? It's going to be a good day.
I have a guitar right here. I thought you'd ask, but
Please do.
Mama, take this badge off of me. Well, I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. Feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Mama, wipe the blood from my face. I'm sick and tired of this war. I need a time to down the place. I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Mama, put these guns in the ground. I can't shoot them anymore. There's a long black train coming down. I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Like so many times before. There you go.
Very nice. Thank you very much.